Hello, my dear friends. How are you doing? This is Christmas, the 12th day of Christmas, Nollaig, mBan. And you're listening to Sisters in the Monastery of St. Elizabeth in Belarus. Live stream on YouTube. It's playing in the distance. I'm sitting here in the dark, a couple of lights flickering, a log in the fire. I'm in the hills above Lough Allen, listening to sisters in Minsk in Belarus celebrating Christmas. And I'm here with you too. I'm here just you, me, and the music in the background. I hope you've had a great Christmas, I have to tell you. Mine has been just so beautiful, so wonderful. I think what gave me real joy this year was when I look back, I had a heart attack in December of 2018, and since then I had 2 serious operations. So every Christmas I was really struggling through it physically. And this was the first Christmas I noticed that I actually could manage to enjoy myself. So I have this overwhelming feeling of gratefulness. And I know that it's important to develop gratefulness. You know, it's like one single meditational disposition that's better than anything you could imagine. You can list what you're grateful for. I'm leaning my 2 elbows on a beautiful desk. It's a partner desk. It's an old Victorian partner desk. I'm not attached to it, but there's a difference between attached to something where you kind of want to possess it and say, that's mine. There's a difference between that and just being grateful that you have it. Isn't it wonderful that I have such a lovely desk and all the lovely drawers in it? I can put different things in different drawers, you know, and then I can't find anything because there's so many drawers. But that's because I'm an incoherent kind of person. But I love the desk. And then I think of this room that I'm in, my shed studio. I've often done podcasts about it and how it came to be. Because somebody, a friend, a local person living down the road was home from England for a few years and he didn't have much work. He was a builder and he was kind of looking for little small jobs. And I said, would there be any chance that you'd renovate a shed? The shed was a galvanised shed. It was an old shed. There was a pot-bellied stove in it. I used to imagine that if I could sort of renovate it a little bit, it would do as a studio for me. And we did that. We brought your man up to have a look at it. And he looked at it and he had a sad face on him. He says, you need to toss that thing there now. So he tossed it and he built a new room, really, even though I call it the studio shed because it's where the shed always was. There's a high ceiling. It's got a lovely stove, and I haven't lit that stove, do you know something, for 3-4 years. And I haven't lit it because I wasn't fit. I couldn't bend over with my back. I couldn't go out and get logs. I couldn't do anything. So if I was in here, I'd be using an electric heater or something, but this Christmas was the first time that I could use wood that fell out of one of our big trees during the storms of last winter, and then I cut it up during the summer, and I could put it in log by log and have a fire. And I'm grateful for that too. So it's like when you list things that you're grateful for, you can list very simple things, you know. Very simple. And they can be actual physical things, you know. It's not bad to enjoy if you're lucky enough to have a new car or something. There's nothing wrong with enjoying it. Or if you have a bottle of whiskey left over from Christmas on the shelf, everything is to be enjoyed. Everything is, in some sense, everything stimulates you to be grateful. And therefore they're actually good for you because they're helping you to be grateful. And if you're grateful, you will be happy. Happiness is a very exotic thing to think about. I don't know what happiness is really. But I know what being grateful is. It's a place you can kind of rest and be still. It is a lovely, lovely feeling. And that's not talking about the big issues. You can be grateful for your children, for your beloved, for your partner. You can be grateful for people that are no longer with you, but even though you might miss them and have a huge empty space in your heart because they're gone or they're passed on, you can still get a great kind of energy from feeling a gratefulness that you were with them. You know, for days that were and therefore are forever, someone said. The beauty of having lived a life with somebody, even though that fun, that life is now over, is still something that you can be grateful for. And I think of my mother, and I am grateful for her life. I'm grateful for the times we spent together. I'm grateful that she gave me birth. I'm grateful that I was born in the socio-economic circumstances that I was. We weren't rich, but we weren't poor, we weren't starving, it wasn't the famine times, and there was no wild animals chasing us. I was lucky to be born. Lucky to be born human. You know the story of the turtle. The turtle is in the big ocean, and there's one single ring, floating ring, on the top of the ocean. Now, what are the chances that the turtle will go through that ring when it comes to the surface? Very slim. That's the kind of chances there are that you would even be born. And you are born, and you are here, and you have a life. And that life, as long as it's still going on, has endless possibilities. Possibilities of miracles, of things happening to you because your heart turns in a particular direction. Could turn to a dark thing or could turn to a beautiful thing. Turn your eyes to beauty, and beautiful things happen to you. And I feel grateful for all those things. So being grateful is like a really, for me it's so healthy at this time of year. And sometimes Christmas is just abiding in a stillness, and I let everything flow over me, like all the rubbish on telly. I love it. All the soap operas, all the old chat and natter at the Christmas table, all the cards, all the phone calls, the connectivity with people, the emotional tyranny of Christmas. The emotional tyranny of Christmas. It can be tyrannizing, or it can be like, let it happen. Let it all happen. Let the chaos happen of Christmas. And just feel glad you're alive. Now that's how I would feel all through it. And then comes the 1st of January and it's pretty difficult to get back to normal. So there's two things I love, two festivals that mark it out for me. One is the 6th of January and the other is the 1st of February, St. Bridget's Day. And this one brings Christmas to a completion, and in the Orthodox tradition it is maybe the most important one, because whereas in the early days of Christmas it's all about Mary, it's all about the mother, it's all about the birth. And it's about that because the idea of the virgin birth, that narrative, that mythic narrative of the virgin birth has its truth in the idea that this great complete wisdom that is Jesus Christ is born to woman. So it's very particular in the way that it thinks about woman being the revelation of God. Somebody pointed out to me one time that if you look in the Old Testament and various other scriptures, you find that men are always going to the mountain to find God. They're always going out into the desert to find God. They're always going out to find God. But always in the scriptures, including in the Old Testament scriptures, God comes to the woman. It's like the woman is intimate with God. There's so many things can be said about womanhood in relation to faith that make me feel that the Christian faith could be if we released it from the kind of shell of institutions, the Christian story, the Christian faith, the Christian Eucharist could all be an extraordinarily powerful crucible of feminine energy. That's all. I know that's not the way. I know it's the politics of the institution have alienated people. And now we live in a secular world. And I'm happy with that. I mean, I'm grateful that I'm alive in this modern, free republic and a kind of secular world where everybody can have their say and everybody can be open about their feelings and their ideas and do what they want, really. But I suppose I'm a secret Catholic. And I would be Orthodox by faith. To be honest with you, the more over the years I have reflected on the prayer dynamics within the Orthodox Church, that would be my home in my heart. And that's why I have a big connection with, it's only a romantic connection now, but I have this, like, listening to Orthodox choirs on YouTube just turns me on. I enjoy it. I've also learned, I suppose, to enjoy my religion. So I use my religion now as a kind of a psychotherapy. I see other people using psychotherapy, various types, models, ways of looking at the world, which are coming out of their psychotherapeutic journeys. And I say, well, that's very good. But the one that works for me is old-fashioned Christian faith. Now, here's the funny thing, that underneath that faith, that kind of attestation, affirmation of Christian faith, there's another layer to me. And the other layer is the kind of openness of unknowing that I get, particularly from Buddhism. There's something about Buddhism that kind of has a refined wisdom of uncertainty. A wisdom that sort of says everything that you're certain of is actually ignorance. And when you say, I don't know anything, you're beginning to awaken. Because this being in the world can never fully be named in language. It's why ritual is one of the only ways, art and music and lovemaking or others, but ritual is a way where we transcend any sense of a logical naming of who we are. I remember when I was in that monastery a couple of years ago, I spent a week in it. I'm listening to it there in the background, but I remember when I was there and I was standing every day at the divine service in this extraordinary church, full of icons, gold, reflected by sunlight. And the ritual, the same ritual every day. It was like, it drew me into an eternal present. It drew me out of the mundane, ordinary narrative of my life. And simply being there was like being in heaven. It was like I could understand, phrases out of St. Paul and places which would say, we are in Christ. and you read them in a dry old stuffy Bible and they don't make sense. And then you're standing there with these other human beings around you, men and women, and it's intensely present. It's like a meditational moment where you're being present in the present moment. And what you're being present to is the ritual, that the music like I'm hearing at the moment, which flowed over you yesterday, which will flow over you tomorrow. It's like an eternal rhythm. It creates a pattern of repetition. Same as a rosary, same as a mantra. And in the repetition, in the ritual repetition, there's something happens where you begin to touch what Cynthia Bourgeault calls the imaginal realm. What I think Jesus called it, the kingdom of heaven. That eternal present begins to become conscious in you. You begin to be aware of really who you are, of really the depth of your own being, the limitless depth of your own consciousness, and how it extends actually beyond your body, beyond your mind. There's a strange way where the relationship between you and the person beside you becomes like they're part of you. You can feel their consciousness like a heat around you, like an energy around you. You feel one with people. All those things happen at rituals, at liturgies. And even in a secular world, people try to access that condition in theatre, in art, in music, and in drugs. They try to access that same trance-like moment of being present intensely and being beyond the mundane. So I love this music. I love Nollaig mBan, celebrating women's Christmas. Do you know the way in Ireland people say, well, this is about where the women came together to do the tidying up and have a natter and all the rest of it. So they had a kind of a day where they weren't doing the chores around the house and they weren't doing anything to do with the men, and they were just gathering together themselves and having a little bit of a celebration after the whole celebration. Okay, that may be true. There was another thing happened. I remember an old woman near us here in Arigna telling me about this. And we do it every year. An old ancient tradition was that on Christmas Eve, but also on the 6th of January, people lit a candle in every window of the house. And even though I'm out in the shed here, talking to you, back in the house behind me, we have a candle lit in every single window, lighted before the darkness comes in on that last evening of Christmas, to, in some sense they say here locally, to bid farewell to the festival. To me, it's like a closure that seems to be a remnant of the early Christian church. And the early Christian church was Orthodox. So the 12th day of Christmas would have always been in the tradition from, let's say, 500 AD to 1200 AD. That 12th day of Christmas would have been hugely important as the climax, because you begin with the birth, the wonder that God is revealing himself through this woman. It's really the beginning of Christmas. And then the very end of it is, well, who is this baby? What do we say about him? And that's the epiphany, the realization. This is a unique and intimate moment of God sort of becoming present in a way that transforms the possibilities of the entire universe. And I just don't want to get in there, but, you know, Teilhard de Chardin and everybody else, there's great theologians that write about that stuff. For me, it's simply that the focus of this day is about Christ, and it's about the cosmic Christ. It's about that transformed glory of the world, which has its foundation in the Godhead. And I am alive in that moment. I am in that moment. I am here in that moment. You are here in that moment. So it's a really like quantum physics kind of festival. And I think that the women kept that alive in a real and natural way. And that's why when the Roman Church had evolved from the 12th century onwards, after a few hundred years, and the women would still be kind of having a big event for themselves on the 12th day, they were carrying the memory of the early church, of this festival, of how we are all completely transformed if we enter into this being in Christ consciousness. That's the main priest now you're listening to, and he's an old man, but he can fairly bellow it out. And you hear his voice rising and rising and rising, and the drama of the Orthodox liturgy is very, very attractive to me. And from his voice bellowing and going up and higher and being very dramatic, and then the calm and beautiful voice of the next singer. Well, listen, I'm talking about the women's Christmas, Nollaig mBan. And I suppose really what I'm saying is that it is the culmination of Christmas. And there's a funny way in which women remember. They remember the resurrection. They are the unique witnesses of the resurrection. And it's a woman who's uniquely the one who brings the Christ into the world, brings God incarnate in a new way. It's a woman. And it's a woman through the power of God's Spirit, not through the power of like another man. So at the beginning and the end of the story of the Christian drama, there's two very strong ideas of a woman. That's mysterious to me because we're coming out of a phase where the churches as institutions are kind of falling away, flaking and crumbling and just falling apart. And sometimes I think that may be a good thing. It may be that we're looking at sort of an old institution which is exclusively male, which is misogynistic in its attitudes and behaviours and practices, but which is like, in a sense, the vessel that holds the wine, or it's the skin that holds the living presence, and the skin falls off, the skin dies. But why? Because there's some new thing happening. So that's what I feel is very strange, you know. I have this sense that at the very moment when we think the church is completely wrecked because of its masculine, all-male, keep women out attitude, but at every level, it may be that there's a new dynamic coming, something new happening. Like something profoundly new, you know, like a new revelation of how it is to be in the world, or how it is to be conscious, or how it is to be, what I would say, in Christ. You know, and I'm scared when I use those words on this podcast. I'm scared of me life to be using words like in Christ, because I know that they sound so old-fashioned. I know that they sound like, you know, people yawn and turn off and say, well, I'm not going to subscribe to that crap. But I just I would be dishonest with you if I didn't say it. If I didn't share with you the conviction that, well, firstly, the reality of my own story, that Christianity has helped me because it's like a psychotherapy. Regardless of the truth of it, it simply helps me live from day to day. It allows me some sort of imaginal world. It allows me a mentor deity. You know, that's I'm situating it there like it's one of many religions and it just works for me. Like, take it off the shelf and try it. And that's a fair way to try Christianity. Just try it. Just try it, actually. Even if you don't believe in Christ, try believing in him. Tell yourself you believe. Fake it until you make it. It's kind of amazing. It's kind of amazing that when you use the words, and the words are just empty, but you use them, you practice, you say the words. Now say them again, day after day. And gradually the words seem to bring a new reality into the way you look at the world. Example, if you wake up in the morning and you say, life is beautiful, or if you say, I'm so glad to be alive, you say a phrase like that every morning, and you will release yourself from the habitual despair that you sometimes wake up with. The actual naming of it, the actual saying of the words. And you wake up and you say, I'm so happy with the day, or I'm so grateful for my life. And you're feeling like, no, I'm not grateful for my life. I'm really angry. I'm frustrated because I lost my job, or because I've no money, or because whatever. And yet when you say something, you almost create the reality. You become more grateful the more times you say, I'm grateful. And it's the same with somebody that you know, and you have a negative attitude to them, and you think, he's a bollocks. And it's like there's a trigger in your mind, as if every time somebody said his name, you're thinking, well, he's a bollocks. And then if you transform that, if there's somebody like that in your life and you're negative to them, and it's like you're just lazy, it's like, don't talk to me about that guy, I don't like that guy. That's like the reality of your life. Okay, you try saying something positive about him. I'm making it up, but I wish him happiness today. Supposing you said that, I wish him happiness. Somebody that you really don't like, and you say, well, I wish him happiness. I really do wish him happiness. Now, you don't feel it when you're saying it. You're feeling, this is ridiculous. I don't wish him happiness. But you actually say it. Are you being a hypocrite? No. After a while, excuse me until I fix this. Now, I had to rearrange the computer, and I'm not going to have time to edit this because I want this to be with you on Nollaig and I have very little time corridor because I wanted to make it live as well. So forgive me in this particular podcast for anything that should have been edited out. I didn't mean to allow those sisters behind me to keep singing, but I'm happy with them singing. My heart wouldn't be in it to turn them off. It's live. He's at the part of the divine service which would be similar in our culture to the final doxology at the end of the Eucharistic prayer, if you want to check it out. Kind of like through him, with him, and in him, in the unity of the Holy Spirit, all honor and glory is yours, Almighty Father, forever and ever. That bit. But it's the ritual of it that works. And it's the saying of something that can be transformative. So, may he be blessed today, you say about somebody. And after a couple of days, you will find your heart turning more warmly to that person. you will begin to like them. Or at least you'll begin to understand them with a kind of a compassion where they're coming from. So it's amazing what skills there are like that. I get most of those skills, I have to say, from Buddhism. And that again is the twofold value of Buddhism for me is that it maintains a foundation for my Christian faith. So it's a protection against ever becoming naively fundamentalist or conservative or sort of righteous about my Christianity. Christianity is such a powerful message, such a powerful possibility that it is difficult to avoid becoming almost intoxicated by it. And that means it's difficult to avoid being righteous. Like if you feel this story of Jesus to be kind of an amazing moment in the cosmic revelation of God, then you can get a bit like proud in yourself because you found this, so you must be right. And if you're right, what about everybody else? Well, they must be all wrong because they're not in your church. And that historically has been the difficulty with the institutional church. I just find that Buddhism is not for me an alternative to Christianity. Buddhism is a philosophy. Buddhism is a psychotherapy. The Buddhism of Tibet in the 20th century is the fruit of nearly 1,000 years of psychotherapeutic exploration of how the mind works and how you can get the mind to work more positively. And so it gives me, on the one hand, a foundation from which I can then approach the icon of Christ and believe every word of my faith as a Christian. And yet underneath it I know that, well, nothing is definitely true. Words never completely encapsulate the truth. They bring you to the door, as Rumi says. They don't bring you into the house. And coming into the house of the Lord is something that you can do with religion or without religion, alone or with a partner, virtually any way you want. There's a strange infinity to God's love that you can't move without finding Him. You walk towards God, but God runs towards you, says Rumi. The idea of the infinite God is quite an extraordinary idea in both Islam and Christianity and Judaism. His mercy is infinite, so it's like you don't have to go to a church. You don't have to go to the institutions worked. The institutions are part of history. But if they fell apart, maybe something amazing would happen. Maybe some transformation of consciousness would happen. Maybe we would understand Christ and the Eucharist in a completely different way. This whole thing about religion is like poetry. This is like living beautifully. It's like walking beautifully, as John Moriarty used to say. Walk beautifully on the earth. Meaning that you're not just literally walking on the earth. And you're not like living for a political motivation. And you're not even living as an oppressed person, but you're living as a liberated person. You're living free in the realm of the heavens. The angels are around you. The light of God is everywhere. That's almost a physical fact nowadays, because the realizations that have come through quantum physics, you could really say, as somebody did say, that all matter is like frozen light. So when in metaphoric terms, we talk about God being the light that is everywhere and in everything. It almost has a kind of a physical manifestation. It's almost like the curtains in front of me and the crossbeams on the roof above me, that all of them are tingling with light. That's a physical fact in quantum physics, but it makes me understand that the way I look at the world is just my perception, and it may be that God is everywhere. Or as they say in Islam, there is nothing but God. There's nothing but God. And I think that if you begin to live like that, it can be an astonishing, joyful experience. Now that's honestly, as I say, I'm embarrassed sharing this with you because I'm really just sharing from the heart my own feelings on this Nollaig mBan. Everything that my senses allow in, through my ears, my nose, my eyes, everything is God. Everything is the touch of God. Even when I'm sick, and I hate being sick, I'm such a coward, I'm such a bad, weak person when it comes to being ill. But I still get a consolation if I'm lying there ill and I say or experience the sense that even this is the touch of God. Even this is some way, what are you doing to me, God? And I do read Psalms and then realise how poetic, how metaphoric they are. You know, they're not just history. You know, God crushed his enemies, but you have to read it like a poem. There's nothing but God. When I sink down below that surface and I say, well, don't clench the fist and say that's the truth, because your Buddhist practice will help you balance. Buddhist practice that says the ultimate truth, no, the ultimate teaching is there is no teaching. It's just keep withdrawing from righteousness. And if you read the Gospels closely, you'll see that Jesus was constantly checking the followers about that. You know, he was constantly pointing out to them that they don't get him when they start to grip him, when they start to fucking grip him and think, oh, you're the one, you're the one, you're the one. He'd be saying, lie back there. You know, the one is in your heart. And it's in your compassion to somebody else. That's where it is. I'll share with you now, for example, a beautiful prayer that His Holiness the Dalai Lama says every day, if I can remember it. And I may have even shared it with you before, about a year ago or so. But if you can listen to it, you'll realise how radically self-effacing it is, right? How totally the expression is to put the other person first, and it's spoken in kind of radical terms, extreme terms. You know, I put myself lowest amongst all, but it's not in a negative or repressive way. It's simply a way of saying, just in any moment when you're with somebody else in the room, put them first. Focus your awareness on their presence. And you begin to see the invisible within them. You begin to see the fragility and the gentleness and the beauty in the other person. And even if the other person is difficult, you know, cranky, awkward, nasty, you begin to learn patience by putting up with them. I'll say this little prayer, they call it. It's a meditation. With the determination to accomplish the highest welfare of all sentient beings who surpass even a wish-granting jewel, I will learn to hold them supremely clear. Whenever I associate with others, I will learn to think of myself as the lowest amongst all, and respectfully hold others to be supreme from the very depths of my heart. In all actions, I will learn to search into my mind, and as soon as a disturbing emotion arises, endangering myself or others, I will firmly face and avert it. I will learn to cherish ill-natured beings and those oppressed by strong misdeeds and sufferings, as if I had found a special treasure difficult to find. When others out of envy treat me badly with abuse, slander and the like, I will learn to take all loss and offer the victory to them. When the one whom I have benefited with great hope hurts me very badly, I will learn to view that person as an excellent spiritual guide. In short, I will learn to offer to everyone, without exception, all help and happiness, directly and indirectly, and respectfully take upon myself all harm and suffering of my mothers. And I will learn to keep all those practices undefiled by the stains of the 8 worldly concerns, and by understanding all phenomena as like illusions, be released from the bondage of attachments. Oh, it's a mighty prayer. There's a whole lot of Buddhist ideas stuck inside it, nesting inside it, which I won't go into, even though I know that it means you may be listening to it and you'll be kind of thinking, I don't get this bit or I don't get that bit. I don't know what it's called, but if you ever wanted to look it up, you just get the first line of it: with the determination to accomplish the highest welfare of all sentient beings, and you would Google that, and up would come the prayer, and then you could study it and find out about it for yourself. But it's I have found that, and so many times in my life, a technique for avoiding me indulge in negativity to other people. And it transforms me into a kind of a different being, where I can be joyful and grateful for every other living being that's ever come across my path, including those who annoy me, because they're even teaching me patience. And there's also a powerful line at the end of it: understanding all phenomena as like illusions, I will be released from the bondage of attachment. So the bondage of attachment is understanding that all phenomena are like illusions. That doesn't mean they are illusions, but it doesn't mean they're real without any depth to them. So all phenomena, all things in the world, including everything that is said, including every human, every single phenomena, you treat not as an illusion, no, but not as kind of so materially real that you could grasp it like and say, I now know the truth. That's the table, you're the man, this is the woman. No. Treat them as like illusions. Another way of putting it is treat them as if they're in a dream. Now there's a lovely practice. To close your eyes, be calm for a minute, and then when you open your eyes, look around you as if you were in a dream. Now you're not in a dream, but it's the middle place between dream and waking where you find this great sense of balance. That's what I bring sometimes to my Christian faith. So you listen to your man now, he's the deacon, and he's singing all the joys of the risen Christ in the sacrament, and you're there. Imagine yourself there in that space, and the choir behind you singing. And it's so beautiful that you want to kind of consolidate your Christian faith. You want to consolidate, affirm. Well, when I get to that moment, it's like my fists begin to tighten. And my Buddhist practice then says, never consolidate, never try to grasp it. Just relate to other people and relate to the whole cosmos and relate to the Eucharist and relate to the liturgies and relate to the Christian presence like with open hands and with a sense of bewilderment, of a sense of not really knowing. Do you know, the minute you think about something as true, you become less present. Because being present is beyond any of our conceptual ways of naming truth. All religion ends up fossilized into concepts and practices, which if you think are true, will just leave you dry like an owl shell. But at the same time, it is liturgy, it is ritual, and it's religious practices that can be used as techniques to open the heart, which allow you into the present moment, and which, funny enough, allow all the religion around you to fall away like scaffolding, and you end up just being present. And you are then present to others, always as beautiful, and you are present in a way that is so mysterious that there's no explaining it. You're just here, and it's good to be here. It's blessed to be here. And I think that when women gathered at Christmas, on the 12th day, on the day that was once the most important liturgy, and which then got a little bit downgraded as the 25th of December became more important, but the women would always never let the Christmas close without getting together on the 12th day and lighting a candle in every window. And not naming it, not explaining it, not leaving big tracts of theology about it, but just being there, just being present. I think that's what Women's Christmas is about. Just being present. There's a tradition that started when the women went out to the empty tomb. The tomb they didn't know was empty, but they went out to be present. When Mary Magdalene stayed after the burial on Good Friday and stayed, for it says she stayed and slept and dreamt, just to be present. You can't name what happens sometimes. And that's the best time of your life. When you can't name it, you just know you're present. A mother can sometimes feel that, and she's looking at a child in her arms. It's just been born. And people watching the mother and the child can see it in the two of them. There's no naming what that is. It's God. That's what the Christian message says. That's what they say in Islam. There is nothing but God. This rapture. And we feel it in grief as well, when somebody passes away. And it's like there's nothing to be said sometimes. You feel it when you're with people. Just in a coffee shop, personally. I'm just there and I don't know why I'm there. I'm there because life is all around me. God is all around me. It's beautiful. And then I go away and be alone. Because God is everywhere. And the funny thing is, I'd be ranting away about the Christian faith, and yet I don't go to institutional stuff, you know. Occasionally, and I should go more, and I probably will if I get any older. You'll see me. I love slipping in and out of churches when they're empty. By the way, I love it. That's when I visit churches all over the place. I can't stop myself going into a church in the emptiness. That beautiful. There's one in Drumshanbo. I slip in when it's empty because it's beautiful. You know, the lighting, everything is just so well done. And I do think sometimes these churches are like wonderful temples of serenity and peace and happiness. And there's so much energy of God's presence goes on there with people slipping in and out and finding consolation and joy. This is live. It's in the background. It's been like an unprepared sharing. It's been just a way to say to you, I'm grateful that you're there. I'm grateful for your presence. And in some sense, I have nothing to offer. The only thing I can offer is a sense of my story. I'm a storyteller, so from week to week, I share a sense of how I'm trundling along from one thing to another. Sometimes I have faith and sometimes I have no faith. Sometimes I'm a Buddhist and sometimes I'm a Christian. Sometimes I'm none of them and I can't stand it and I just tell stories. It is the most chaotic podcast that I know. Isn't your man great? It'd be lovely, as I say, it's live, and I haven't prepared this. It'd be lovely if he kind of came to a final conclusion, so I could conclude the podcast. Otherwise, I have to fade him out. Do you think he's going to finish? We'll be hearing for a minute. They're all there in the church now. They're still there, and they're giving out Holy Communion. And there's a good crowd in the church still, and I've two beautiful Christmas trees on either side of the iconostasis, which is the wall of icons that shelters the altar. And they've an archway of, I think it's holly, again with lovely coloured lights and white flowers in it. And that's, at the moment, in Minsk. And we are all broken-hearted by war. So thank you for being here. Nollaig honna Jeev Elig. Happy Christmas. Happy New Year. And thank you for being here. Bye-bye.